Nicosia, Armenian, is the capital and largest city on the island of Cyprus, as well as its main business center. It is located near the center of the Mesoarea plain, on the banks of the river Pedios. Nicosia is the capital and seat of government of the Republic of Cyprus, and as such is the farthest southeast of all EU member states' capitals. It has been continuously inhabited for over 4,500 years and has been the capital of Cyprus since the 10th century. Nicosia was divided into the southern Greek Cypriot and the northern Turkish Cypriot parts in 1963, following the intercommunal violence that broke out in the city. Today, the northern part of the city is the capital of Northern Cyprus, a de facto state that is considered to be occupied Cypriot territory by the international community. Apart from its legislative and administrative functions, Nicosia has established itself as the island's financial capital and its main international business center. In 2012, the city was ranked as the fifth richest city in the world in relative purchasing power. It hosted the Miss Universe 2000 pageant. History. Ancient times. Nicosia has been in continuous habitation since the beginning of the Bronze Age 2,500 years BC, when the first inhabitants settled in the fertile plain of Mesoarea. Nicosia later became a city-state known as Leda or Ledra, one of the 12 kingdoms of ancient Cyprus built by Achaeans after the end of the Trojan War. Remains of old Leda today can be found in the Aya Paraskavi hill in the southeast of the city. We only know about one king of Ledra, Anaxagoras. The kingdom of Ledra was destroyed early, under Assyrian rule of Cyprus. Anaxagoras was recorded as paying tribute to Esarhaddon of Assyria in 672 BC. By 330 BC, Leda was recorded to be a small and unimportant town. According to tradition, the city was rebuilt by Lucas, claimed to be the son of Ptolemy I, around 300 BC or 200 BC, and named after him as Leucoton, or Lefkathion. The main activity of the town inhabitants was farming. During this era, Leda did not have the huge growth that the other Cypriot coastal towns had, which was primarily based on trade. Roman and Byzantine times. In Byzantine times the town was also referred to as Lambda Epsilon Kappa Omicron Upsilon Sigma Iota Alpha, or as Kappa Alpha Lambda Eta Nu Iota Kappa Eta Sigma Iota Sigma. In the 4th century AD, the town became the seat of bishopric, with Bishop Saint Tryphilius, a student of Saint Spyridon. After the destruction of Salamis, the existing capital of Cyprus, by Arab raids in 647, Nicosia became the capital of the island around 965, when Cyprus rejoined the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines moved the island's administration seat to Nicosia primarily for security reasons, as coastal towns were often suffering from raids. From that point on it has remained as the capital of Cyprus. Nicosia acquired a castle and was the seat of the Byzantine governor of Cyprus. The last Byzantine governor was Isaac Komnenos, who declared himself emperor of the island and ruled the island from 1183 to 1191. Medieval times. On his way to the Holy Land during the Third Crusade in 1187, Richard I of England's fleet was plagued by storms. He himself stopped first at Crete and then at Rhodes. 3 ships continued on, one of which was carrying Queen Joan of Sicily and Berengaria of Navarre, Richard's bride-to-be. 2 of the ships were wrecked off Cyprus, but the ship bearing Joan and Berengaria made it safely to Limassol. Joan refused to come ashore, fearing she would be captured and held hostage by Isaac Komnenos, who hated all Franks. Her ship sat at anchor for a full week before Richard finally arrived on the 8th of May. Outraged at the treatment of his sister and his future bride, Richard invaded. Richard laid siege to Nicosia, finally met and defeated Isaac Komnenos at Tremetuja and became ruler of the island. but sold it to the Knights Templar. The Frankish rule of Cyprus started from 1192 and lasted until 1489. During this time, Nicosia was the capital of the medieval Kingdom of Cyprus, the seat of Lusignan kings, the Latin Church and the Frankish administration of the island. During the Frankish rule, the walls of the city were built along with many other palaces and buildings, including the Gothic St. Sophia Cathedral. The tombs of the Lusignan kings can be found there. The exonym Nicosia appeared with the arrival of the Lusinians. The French-speaking Crusaders either could not, or did not care to, pronounce the name Lefkosia, and tended to say Nicosia, translated into Italian and then internationally known as Nicosia. In 1374 Nicosia was occupied and ravaged by the Genoans, and in 1426 from the Mamelukes of Egypt. In 1489, when Cyprus came under Venetian rule, Nicosia became their administrative centre and the seat of the Republic of Venice. The Venetian governors saw it as a necessity for all the cities of Cyprus to be fortified due to the Ottoman threat. In 1567 Venetians built the new fortifications of Nicosia, which are well preserved until today, demolishing the old walls built by the Franks as well as other important buildings of the Frankish era, including the King's Palace, other private palaces and churches and monasteries of both Orthodox and Latin Christians. The new walls took the shape of a star with 11 bastions. The design of the bastion is more suitable for artillery and a better control for the defenders. The walls have 3 gates: to the north Kyrenia Gate, to the west Paphos Gate and to the east Famagusta Gate. The river Pediaros used to flow through the Venetian walled city. In 1567 it was later diverted outside onto the newly built moat for strategic reasons, due to the expected Ottoman attack. Ottoman rule. On 1 July 1570, the Ottomans invaded the island. On the 22nd of July, Pile Pasha, having captured Paphos, Limassol and Larnaca, marched his army towards Nicosia and laid siege to the city. The city managed to last 40 days under siege until its fall on 9 September 1570. Some 20,000 residents died during the siege. In every church, public building, and palace was looted. The main Latin churches were converted into mosques, such as the conversion of the St. Sophia Cathedral. Nicosia was the seat of the Pasha, the Greek archbishop, the dragoman and the Qadi. The square outside was known as Saraglio Square or Saragionu, as it is known to the present day. The Sarai was demolished in 1904 and the present block of government offices built on the site. When the newly settled Turkish population arrived, they generally lived in the north of the old riverbed. Greek Cypriots remained concentrated in the south, where the archbishopric of the Orthodox Church was built. Other ethnic minority groups such as the Armenians and Latins came to be settled near the western entry into the city at Paphos Gate. The names of the 12 quarters into which Nicosia was originally divided at the time of the Ottoman conquest are said to be derived from the 12 generals in command of divisions of the Ottoman army at the time, each general being posted to a quarter. That quarter was known by his name as follows: General Ibrahim Pasha, General Mahmud Pasha, General Akkavuk Pasha, General Koud Effendi, General Arab Ahmed Pasha, General Abdi Pasha, known as Chavush, from which rank he was probably promoted, General Haydar Pasha, General Karamanzada, General Yahya Pasha, General Daniel Pasha, Tufane, Nebet meaning police station or quarters of the patrol. The names of the generals in command of the last 2 quarters have been lost. Later the number of neighborhoods was increased to 24. Each neighborhood was organized around a mosque or a church, where mainly the respective Muslim and Christian communities lived. British administration. Nicosia came under the rule of Great Britain on 5 July 1878. The old Ottoman administrative headquarters was replaced in 1904 by a new building containing law courts, the land registry, and the forestry, customs, and Nicosia commissioners' offices. Adjacent was the Nicosia police headquarters, while opposite were the general post office and the telegraph office. A Venetian column, previously in a fenced courtyard near the Sarai, was restored on a new site in the summer of 1915 in the middle of Sarai Square. The Nicosia column was presumably erected in compliment to the reigning Doge Francesco Donati about the year 1550. Just after the British occupation, a municipal council was constituted in Nicosia in 1882 for the general administration of public affairs within the city and for a certain area without the walls, under the presidency of the mayor. The first municipal offices were in Municipality Square, but in 1944 the offices were transferred temporarily to the Davila Bastion, and in 1952 this was made permanent with a decision to renovate the building. In 1923 the municipal limits were extended further and this new area was divided among several of the existing intramural neighborhoods. In 1938 the boundary was extended to the present limits in the western to the boundaries of Aeomoloites, Palauriatissa, Kaimaklai and Omorpheta. In 1944 the village authority of Aeomoloites was absorbed. Then, shortly after independence, Palauriatissa, Kaimaklai and Omorpheta were annexed to the city in 1968. In 1955 an armed struggle against the British rule began, aiming to unite the island with Greece, Enosis. The struggle was led by EOKA, a Greek Cypriot nationalist military resistance organization, and supported by the vast majority of Greek Cypriots. The unification with Greece failed and instead the independence of Cyprus was declared in 1960. During the period of the struggle, Nicosia was the scene of violent protests against the British rule, independence and division. In 1960 Nicosia became the capital of the Republic of Cyprus, a state established by the Greek and Turkish Cypriots. In 1963, the Greek Cypriot side proposed amendments to the constitution, which were rejected by the Turkish Cypriot community. During the aftermath of this crisis, on the 21st of December 1963, intercommunal violence broke out between Greek and Turkish Cypriots. Nicosia was divided into Greek and Turkish Cypriot quarters with the Green Line, named after the color of the pen used by the United Nations officer to draw the line on a map of the city. This resulted in Turkish Cypriots withdrawing from the government, and following more intercommunal violence in 1964, a number of Turkish Cypriots moved to the Turkish quarter of Nicosia, causing serious overcrowding. On 15 July 1974, there was an attempted coup d'état led by the Greek military junta to unite the island with Greece. The coup ousted President Makarios III and replaced him with pro-Enosis nationalist Nikos Samson. On 20 July 1974, the Turkish army invaded the island on the pretext of restoring the constitutional order of the Republic of Cyprus. The operation included two phases. The second phase of the Turkish invasion was performed on 14 August 1974, where the Turkish army advanced their positions, eventually capturing a total of 37% of Cypriot territory including the northern part of Nicosia. The fighting left the island with a massive refugee problem on both sides. On 13 February 1975 the Turkish Cypriot community declared the Turkish Federated State of Cyprus in the area occupied by Turkish forces. On 15 November 1983, Turkish Cypriots proclaimed their independence as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. On 23 April 2003, the Ledra Palace crossing was opened through the Green Line, the first time that crossing was allowed since 1974. This was followed by the opening of Iostometios Metian crossing point on 9 May 2003. On 3 April 2008, the Leda Street crossing was also reopened. Geography. Climate. Nicosia has a subtropical hot semi-arid climate with long, hot and dry summers. Most of the rainfall occurs in winter. Another chart with cooler temperatures. Cityscape. South of the Green Line, Leda Street is in the middle of the walled city. The street has historically been the busiest shopping street of the capital, and adjacent streets lead to the most lively part of the old city with narrow streets, boutiques, bars and art cafes. The street today is a historic monument on its own. It is about 1 kilometer long and connects the south and north parts of the old city. During the EOKA struggle that ran from 1955 to 1959, the street acquired the informal nickname the Murder Mile in reference to the frequent targeting of the British colonialists by nationalist fighters along its course. In 1963, during the outbreak of hostilities between the Greek and Turkish Cypriot communities, following the announcement of amendments to the Cypriot constitution, Turkish Cypriots withdrew to the northern part of Nicosia, which became one of the many Turkish Cypriot enclaves which existed throughout the island. Various streets which ran between the northern and southern part of the city, including Leda Street, were blockaded. During the Turkish army invasion of Cyprus in 1974, Turkish troops occupied northern Nicosia. A buffer zone was established across the island along the ceasefire line to separate the northern Turkish-controlled part of the island and the south. The buffer zone runs through Leda Street. After many failed attempts on reaching agreement between the two communities, Leda Street was reopened on 3 April 2008. To the east of Leda Street, Phaneromeni Square was the center of Nicosia before 1974. It hosts a number of historical buildings and monuments including Phaneromeni Church, Phaneromeni School, Phaneromeni Library and the Marble Mausoleum. Phaneromeni Church is a church built in 1872 in the stead of another church located at the same site, constructed with the remains of La Calva Castle and a convent. There rest the archbishop and the other bishops who were executed by the Ottomans in the Sarai Square during the 1821 revolt. The palace of the archbishop can be found at Archbishop Kyprianos Square. Although it seems very old, it is a wonderful imitation of typical Venetian style, built in 1956. Next to the palace is the late Gothic St. John Cathedral with picturesque frescoes. The square leads to Onazagoru Street, another busy shopping street in the historical center. The walls surrounding the old city have 3 gates. In the Kyrenia Gate, which was responsible to the transport to the north, and especially Kyrenia, the Famagusta Gate, which was responsible for the transport from Famagusta, Larnaca and Limassol in Carpathia, and the Paphos Gate for transport to the west and especially Paphos. All 3 gates are well preserved. The historical center is clearly present inside the walls, but the modern city has grown beyond. Presently, the main square of the city is a lift area square, with the city hall, the post office and the library. The square, which is currently under renovation, connects the old city with the new city, where one can find the main shopping streets such as the prestigious Stasia Kratos Street, Themistokli Derva Avenue and Makarios Avenue. Nicosia is also known for its fine museums. The Archbishop's Palace contains a Byzantine museum containing the largest collection of religious icons on the island. Other interesting museums include the Folk Art Museum, National Struggle Museum, Cyprus Ethnological Museum and the Handicrafts Center. Nicosia also hosts an Armenian archbishopric, a small Buddhist temple and also the Maronite archbishop and convent. Cyprus is the second most important country for the Maronite people worldwide after Lebanon. Pope Benedict XVI resided inside the convent during his visit to the island in June 2010. North of the Green Line at the center of the walled city lies the Sarajevo Square. The square has been dubbed as the heart of Nicosia, and historically has been the cultural center of the Turkish Cypriot community. In the middle of the square stands the Venetian column, known simply as the obelisk, to the locals and symbolic of the country's government. The column was brought from the ancient city of Salamis by the Venetians in 1550. The Gurn Avenue connects Sarajevo to the Kyrenia Gate and the Inonu Square in front of it. The avenue has been described as the symbol of the walled city, and is filled with numerous shops and restaurants. Next to the Leda Street checkpoint is the Arasta area. The area was pedestrianized in 2013 and is home to a network of historic shopping streets, reflecting an Eastern shopping tradition with food and traditional items. Nearby Buyukan, the largest caravanserai in the island and considered to be one of the finest buildings in Cyprus, was built in 1572 by the Ottomans and currently functions as a cultural center. To the west of the Gurn Avenue lies the Samanbachi neighborhood, built in the 19th century by the government. Considered to be the first example of social housing in the island. Still a residential area, the neighborhood is considered to be one of the best representations of the Cypriot culture. Another central point in the walled city is the Selimiye Mosque, originally built as the St. Sophia Cathedral. The mosque is the chief religious center in northern Cyprus. It was built between 1209 and 1228 by the Latin Church of Cyprus, in a Gothic style resembling French cathedrals. Next to the mosque is the Bedesin, a large Greek church in the Byzantine and Gothic styles, built in the 14th century. It was used as a marketplace in the Ottoman era. Today, it is used as a cultural center where various cultural activities such as concerts and festivals take place. The quarters of Nicosia outside the walled city are more spacious than the walled city, with wider roads and junctions. These areas are characterized by multi-floor concrete buildings. In the outskirts of the city, a number of large and imposing villas have been built that belong to the middle and upper classes. The Direboyu Avenue serves as the modern heart of the northern part and is its center of entertainment.